Hello everyone, Mark Abbott from your Engineering Change Lab Secretariat here. In this video, I'm going to share some of the latest synthesis work on our deep and shared understanding of what is the higher potential of the profession and how to unlock it. So just for a quick bit of context, to share a bit about the arc of our thinking on this front as we've worked together to deepen a shared understanding. We started off with that very broad goal of unlocking the higher potential of the profession. That led right off the bat to questions about, well, what is the profession and who is a real engineer? Why is it important to unlock that potential, and what's holding back the potential anyway? And then we started looking more explicitly at, well, what's the output of the profession? What value does the profession provide to society? And then the last couple workshops, we got into understanding some of the polarities or value tensions that we felt might be holding back that potential. So what I'd say is, up to this point, we've been doing a lot of work at kind of building up from the current reality of the profession and sort of filling the blank page that we started with, which I think has been really useful. What I'd like to suggest now is that I think it'd be useful to actually jump and start working from the top down, from the theoretical role of the engineering profession in society in the longer run. And so when we look at this relationship between science and technology and society, which is one of the, if not the critical relationship that's going to sort of shape the future of humankind, I would say that the engineering and the engineering profession has and needs to play an increasingly critical role in ensuring that that relationship is beneficial, that it results in more well-being, more justice, and more sustainability instead of less of those things, which is also possible. Now, it's not just engineers. There's scientists and technologists and politicians who play a role, but I think actually that increasingly in the future, the engineering is going to be even more needed in terms of the applications and implications of science and technology in a world that's accelerating, becoming more complex, and where this relationship is moving at a more and more rapid pace. So if to put out there a statement of an end state of where the engineering profession should be, the engineering profession is playing a leading role in shaping a beneficial relationship between science and technology and society. So if that's what we want to achieve, if that's the end state we want to get to, the question then becomes, well, how are we doing on that? And I would put forth that from what we've seen in the lab, what's been bubbling up is that there's three key factors that we need to move on and make progress on if we want that to become increasingly true. And so for each of these factors, strength of identity, evolutionary capacity, and focus on societal benefit, I'll talk a little bit about the current state, the from point, and the desired state, or where we need to go to. And it's important to note that our current state is not a point, it's actually a distribution, and there's already individuals and organizations that are at the sort of desired end state. But our work in the lab is actually to move the weight of the system over into closer to the desired state. So first off, when we talk about strengthening identity, I would say right now that the identity of both engineers and engineering is weakening, and that the profession is becoming, and has been and is becoming, more insular. And where we need to move to is a strong identity that gives us the strength to actually integrate well with all the other professions and parts of society that the engineering profession needs to touch. So this comes into the very definition of the words engineers and engineering. It comes into our culture and the confidence that the profession has as it goes forth. And it comes into even general public literacy on engineering, which is something that I think is getting lost when the definition isn't clear. Next, we have this idea of evolutionary capacity. So I think it's obvious to everybody that this relationship between science and technology is accelerating. And so how is the profession doing in terms of keeping up? Well, I'd argue that we're starting increasingly to lag science and technology, and that our role should be to help catch up, keep up, and lead in that relationship. So whether it comes to incorporating the latest cutting edge science that's coming out of artificial intelligence or Internet of Things or these different areas, whether it comes to the ability of our institutions and policy and culture to adapt and evolve from where it came from, in the early 1900s to the 21st century and our new context, or whether it even just comes to the amount of dialogue there is across the profession about its evolution and what's pushing us forward. And so third, we have this idea of focus on societal benefits. And again, I'd say in our current state, there's a focus more on microethics and on a complicated regime. So it's looking at the individual engineer, the sort of stability of the bridge. Whereas increasingly, I think engineers also need to be able to work in terms of macroethics and complex systems. So looking at, in a complex, interconnected world, what are the societal impacts in terms of environmental, in terms of social, in terms of economic, We can't shy away from tackling the tough to understand systemic implications, because that's what this relationship is all about. And in fact, when we think about this relationship unfolding in a way that's detrimental to society, what we're more and more worrying about is systems that run amok, not parts that are failing. So I think the profession needs to really build its competency in this area too. So I've gone through these really quick, just to kind of, as almost a bit of a taster on these different pieces. And there's a mountain of examples and a mountain of thinking that comes underneath each of these areas. And what I'm proposing is that as we progress our work together, I think we can work down from this end state through some of these factors and actually connect with what we've been seeing in each of the subsystems and what our initiatives are finding, and actually create a more sort of comprehensive picture of our work together that in and of itself will be a powerful driver of change in the system. Great, and in our next video, we're going to talk about refinements to our approach working together as a lab to really make sure that we're doing what's necessary to live up to this potential.